Some of the best food in the world is being cooked in ethnic restaurants all over America, and yet they often struggle to turn a profit, let alone stay full. Not because the food isn't good, not because the owners aren't working hard, and not because there's no market for these types of cuisines. The reason is because a lot of U.S. diners hesitate quietly when they don't feel confident ordering. They're struggling because a lot of American diners, they just don't know what they're ordering. And no one ever taught them about other cultures, other cuisine. That hesitation and that lack of education is costing a lot of ethnic restaurants here in the United States time and money. And sadly, a lot are beginning to shut down because of it. In today's video, I want to talk honestly about why a lot of ethnic restaurants struggle to resonate with US diners, even when their food is excellent, and what's really happening in the customer's mind at the moment of choice. The solution is not to water down the culture, it's to educate diners clearly, confidently, and visually when the food or the dish that you're preparing is unfamiliar. The goal is to remove fear without removing identity. Let's get into the video. Okay, let's start with a simple truth. A lot of ethnic restaurants struggle because the dining decision process is built around familiarity and confidence. And unfamiliarity honestly creates friction. That friction shows up quietly, but it's very powerful. Now, I just want to pause here and say that if your restaurant has a strong base that's very familiar with your food and can support you, then that's great. So, for example, if you own a Middle Eastern restaurant and you live in a community with a lot of Middle Eastern culture, a lot of Middle Eastern history, that's wonderful. If you live in an Ethiopian community, and you serve primarily Ethiopian food, then that customer base is naturally going to be familiar with your food. But if you're trying to expand that cuisine to a wider audience, then it doesn't always translate. Let me give an example. When most American diners hear things like chaat masala, baba ganoush, kibbeh, tabbouleh, shawarma, they don't have a frame of reference. They don't know what those dishes are. Now, incidentally, these are some of my favorite dishes ever. But now compare those dishes with things like pizza, tacos, sweet and sour chicken, egg rolls. These are still ethnic dishes. However, it's a part of Americanized cuisine. When customers picture these dishes in their minds, they already know what the flavor profile is going to be. They already have a solid understanding of the dish. Here's where a lot of small restaurant owners go wrong. They honestly believe that if people care about food, then they'll figure it out. They'll naturally discover the restaurant and will want to come in. But unfortunately, dining doesn't work that way. See, most diners don't think that way. They don't want homework. They don't want to have to figure things out. They don't want to have to decrypt another culture. They want comfort, they want reassurance, and they want ease. See, most American diners are not hostile to ethnic cuisine. They honestly do want to try new foods and experience new cultures. But there's some uncertainty there. They don't want to order the wrong thing. They don't want to waste their money. They don't want to look ignorant in front of friends who may have a solid understanding of what they're ordering and what the dish will taste like. They don't want to ask questions that feel embarrassing to the server. And when people feel unsure, they default to what they already know. And that's just human behavior. I want to point out that in the post pandemic dining scene, where delivery is a lot more prevalent, then the person on the other end of that app does not usually get the benefit of being able to ask a server to explain what a dish is. They have no reference for what a certain dish will taste like. It's kind of like a pilot just flying blind. So they move to something else that they naturally understand. So let's actually break down how diners choose restaurants. Most American diners are not adventurous decision makers. They're risk averse, they're time constrained, they're mentally fatigued, they're afraid of ordering the wrong things. And recently, there's two things that have dramatically amplified this problem. Number one, dining out costs more. Even ordering takeout is costing them a lot more than it used to. When meals are expensive, then people make fewer choices. They're less bold, they're less daring, and they're a lot more cautious about where their money is being spent. Number two, people are mentally drained. Decision fatigue is a real thing. See, when people are tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, they simplify. They choose what's natural. They choose what feels comfortable. They choose what feels easy to them. Ethnic restaurants, for this reason, are rarely a customer's default choice. Not because they shouldn't be, but because they just haven't been made familiar to the customer yet. So people naturally revert to what feels safe, to foods that they understand. Diners fear embarrassment. Now, this matters more than you might think. See, a lot of diners, they secretly worry about mispronouncing dishes or misunderstanding how to eat the dish or looking stupid or looking inexperienced. Ethnic restaurants that thrive, they don't avoid this particular reality. They focus on learning, they focus on educating their diners. They make questions feel welcome, and education removes embarrassment. Now, when people actually get to the restaurant, this is where a lot of ethnic restaurants run into trouble. The menus often include unfamiliar dish names, ingredients that people can't even pronounce, cultural references without explanation, or formats that assume insider cultural knowledge, which most Americans just don't have if they haven't been well traveled. To the restaurant owner, these cultural references, this might seem normal. This might seem like an everyday thing, but to the diner, it creates a moment of doubt, a moment of confusion. They think, what if I don't like the dish? Or what if I order the wrong thing? Or what if I waste my money? When doubt enters, people naturally retreat. Now, this is not about taste, it's more about confidence in the mind of your diners. Now, most diners would probably love your food, but they don't get that far in the process because they never order. In most American neighborhoods, confidence beats curiosity. People don't choose what sounds most interesting, they choose what feels the least risky. So, for example, if you have a dish that people can barely understand and you pit that against maybe a pizza, then most Americans will choose the pizza because they know what a pizza is. They understand what they can get on a pizza. And 90% of the time, they understand exactly how a pizza is going to taste. So let's talk about three things that successful ethnic restaurants do differently. Ethnic restaurants that thrive, and I'm going to use an example of Asian restaurants, they usually do some things very well. They explain dishes without apologizing. They offer clear entry points for first time guests. They highlight familiar flavors alongside traditional ones. They reduce the fear of ordering the wrong thing. See, they don't abandon their culture, they build bridges into a new market, into a new customer type by educating diners. So, what can you actually do? Well, let's start with number one. Pictures are the first teacher. Now, when dishes are unfamiliar, photos provide more than just decoration for your menu. They're actually instructions. Strong food photography does a few things. It displays accurate portion sizes. It shows the texture of the food. It shows how the ingredients work together for the specific dish. They answer questions even before the diners ask them. Low quality photos or no photos at all, they force diners to guess, they force diners to imagine what the dish looks like, tastes like, and what that experience will be for them. People don't want guesswork, they want certainty. The problem is that imagination naturally increases risk. Vivid images, they don't cheapen the food, they translate it for your diners. Number two, description should paint a picture, not just list ingredients. Now, ingredients alone, they don't teach people. And the sad reality is, most people were not raised knowing how to cook complex dishes. Descriptions on your menu should do their job. They have a job to explain the dish to the customer. They should explain how it's prepared. They should explain how it tastes. They should explain how it's eaten, what experience to expect. This is where ethnic restaurants can educate without compromise. Instead of assuming knowledge, invite curiosity. So let's take an example. Instead of saying something like, this is a traditional dish with spices, maybe try something like, this is a slow cooked dish for hours, deeply savory, rich with warm spices, comforting rather than hot. See, that's education. It's actually painting a picture in the mind of the diner, something that they can look forward to, something that they can anticipate. Number three, servers should educate with confidence, not caution. Here's what I mean. When diners are willing to take a chance on your restaurant, then the server becomes the guide. Now, this is critical because servers should not rush explanations or seem annoyed or downplay a customer's unfamiliarity. And never, ever, ever should a server be condescending to a guest who is unfamiliar with their culture. Not only does this discourage repeat visits, but it also invites bad reviews. You definitely do not want bad reviews on Google because a server was rude or impatient. Servers have a specific job to do. They should explain the dishes proudly, maybe even mix in a little bit of the culture behind the dish, or maybe some history behind what inspired this particular dish. They need to describe flavors vividly, vividly enough that the diner can taste the dish with their mind. They need to take the time to answer all questions fully. And most importantly, they need to reassure diners that they made a good choice. Maybe even saying so. Oh, that's an excellent choice. Or, oh, that's one of our most popular dishes that we have here. See, your history and culture have a story behind it. Your menu should tell that story in flavor and taste. When done well, it turns uncertainty into excitement, into anticipation. So here's the real takeaway. Ethnic restaurants, they don't struggle generally because Americans don't appreciate experiencing new cultures and new flavors. They struggle because the decision environment does not reward confusion. Decision does not reward unfamiliarity. Ethnic restaurants, they don't need to be less authentic. They need to be better teachers, better educators. When diners understand what they're ordering, then fear is reduced or it disappears completely. Curiosity returns, anticipation returns. And when anticipation returns, confidence naturally follows. Great food at that point finally gets the audience that it deserves. In the post pandemic economy, it's important to remember two things. Having good food just isn't good enough anymore. And if no one walks through the front door of your restaurant, nothing else matters. I'm Donovan Garrett. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.